CJ, we've been talking about the Trump administration cracking down on fraud in Minnesota, and we've also heard President Trump's damning comments about Democrat Ilhan Omar. Well, let's hear from the Congresswoman.
Always been a racist, a bigot, a xenophobic, and Islamophobic. We know that he called African nations a in his first administration. Most of us are citizens. On our passport, it says we are nationals of this country. We love that Minnesota has welcomed us. Many of us have not been settled in Minnesota. We chose it as a home because the Minnesota people and the state is beautiful and very welcoming. And we are going to be here regardless of what the president has to say.
I almost thought for a second there she was going to say, we love this country. I think it's pretty clear that Ilhan Omar does not love America. But what do you think about the clash between her and Trump? And do you feel that those who have been granted asylum and a second chance at life in America have an obligation to be patriotic and at least be a little bit grateful to their new homeland?
You know, I would definitely agree with that. You don't get to flee one country and try to turn our country into the third world country that you fled. It's just not, doesn't really make much sense to me as to why we would allow that as a part of government policy. But I'll tell you, I'm not surprised to see Ilhan Omar and President Trump on opposite sides of this issue and many other issues, because the inherent difference between the two of them is that our President Trump, loves this country. She does not love this country. I couldn't readily actually recall any single moment when she has said anything glowing about the United States of America at any time. I could tell you when she said great things about Somalia, a country that she refuses to go back to. But I cannot tell you when she has ever said something about why America is great, why she should continue to be great. And I think that should tell you everything about her and her politics.
Now, CJ, there are reports that the Justice Department is close to a decision on whether to seek new indictments against former FBI Director James Comey and New York Attorney General Letitia James. A Democrat-appointed federal judge dismissed the cases against Comey and James on a technicality, but without prejudice, meaning these charges can be refiled.
You're exactly right, Rita. I'm so glad you brought up that point. The judge did not rule on the merits of this case in any way whatsoever. He did not rule on the guilt of James Comey. He did not rule on the guilt of Letitia James. And so these cases can be refiled and they can be seen in a new light. And so I hope that is exactly what the DOJ will do. I believe that is what will happen based on that conversation with those in the building. And the reason I think that's so important is I think it's important that we make the case that no one is above the law. It doesn't matter if you're an attorney general of New York or if you're the former FBI director, you will be held accountable if you break the law. And there's strong evidence to suggest that that's exactly what they did.
President Trump has been all about returning manufacturing back to America, and he plans to reset fuel efficiency standards for cars in an effort to boost manufacturing and lower prices. Let's hear from the president and then the Ford CEO, Jim Farley.
I won the auto workers vote, but now even the head of the auto workers said Trump is the greatest president we've ever seen. And he happens to be right about that.
We were number 2 last year in EV sales. We were number 3 in hybrid, and we're the leading brand for combustion. We believe that people should be able to make a choice, as you said, Mr. President, and we will invest more in affordable vehicles. This allows us to invest in affordable vehicles made in the U.S.
CJ, the previous rules under the Biden administration were all focused on lowering carbon emissions and putting upward pressure on car prices. So this is a fairly dramatic departure from those policies.
Yeah, you're exactly right, but it again underscores the president's commitment to making America affordable again. As the CEO of Ford just said, this is going to allow them to refocus their attention and reprioritize the importance of making affordable vehicles right here in America, which means more American jobs and more accessibility for these vehicles for everyday American consumers. And so, again, President Trump is delivering on the promises he made when he ran for president. This isn't a surprise to many people who I think are paying attention, but it's welcome news for many people who have felt the brunt of course, the record high inflation that we suffered under President Joe Biden. And I think it's welcome news all across the board from people in every corner of this country.
Before you go, I played footage earlier in the week of the White House Christmas decorations overseen by Melania Trump, and it's quite a contrast to what we've seen in recent years under the Biden administration, which featured some fairly bizarre decorations and performances. This year it's a dramatic departure, CJ. How do you see it? Do you miss the Biden colour and frivolity that we're seeing on one half of the screen?
Well, Rita, you know me. You know there's nothing I miss about Joe Biden in any way whatsoever. But what I'll tell you about this, when I look at these incredible decorations, what I see is that we're not saying happy holidays anymore. We're saying Merry Christmas. Christmas is back in the United States of America, and President Trump has played a key part in that, along with our incredible First Lady, Melania Trump, as well.
CJ Pearson, thank you so much for your time tonight.